Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil rock.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
You're listening to Riff Worship, the podcast that attempts to answer the age-old question, what makes a riff? Talking about some of our favorite albums containing riffs and maybe talking to a few people who make a few good riffs of their own. I'm one of your hosts, Austin Paulson. With me, as always, Justin Swindle. Swindle, what is up?
Anyway.
Yeah. We have a very special guest with us today. This has been a long time coming. Very, very excited to have a prolific vocalist, multi-instrumentalist, a collector of things, many things. You might have heard him from some projects like Left 4 Dead, The Swarm, Ruination, Cursed, who we did a pretty lengthy episode on a while back, SECT, Plagues Upon Plagues, out now through Southern Lord, as well as Burning Love, who will be reuniting for their final show at Prepare the Ground Festival in Toronto this year, as well as his solo project, Unwell. I'm, of course, talking about Chris Colohan. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
I am curious. This is a question we kind of often, ask guests that come on the show. I know you started out as a drummer, but you have, dabbled in guitar. To you, maybe as a listener or a musician, what makes a riff? Like, what does it need? What do you look for? I would love to know, what your thoughts on, just when you hear a riff, what catches your ear about it?
I'd say what makes a good riff, in terms of loud music, is really comes down to bounciness. You know what I mean? Like the offbeats, the downbeats. Anybody that writes like that really sticks out. Eric Allen that played it on Broken and Swing Kids. It literally swings. It bounces and it goes up and down. And your brain's, and a lot of integrity riffs are like that too. Like it's just like the unspoken under, offbeat part of a riff. And something that kind of bounces along like that. That's the stuff that I think really, really sticks. And I don't know. Look at Unbroken, especially the jam, from the 7-inch Fallen Proverb. Absentee Debate. Yeah, all those jams are just things that have a rhythm that isn't just mechanical and kind of flat. And that could be anything, anything, a lot of crusty things, like Disrupt is like that. Dead Guy was like that. Damnation AD was like that. All kinds of things that are, bouncy. I think that's what makes a riff. Nasty and ignorant, but also kind of has a weird sort of bounce to it. Yeah. Like disgusting and vile. And
I like that.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a lot of names just right out of the gate. I'd be curious, again, I know you kind of started your musical kind of journey maybe on the drum kit, but
it was only the very beginning of the journey. It was as a teenager, that was it. I didn't really drum until middle, all the way through time. I drummed on a Career Suicide record and a couple little one-off things between, since then. But most of the time I've been singing up until this last couple of years.
Was that just out of necessity? Where, the bands that you were playing in, what got you in front of the mic versus behind a kit, maybe starting out?
I played in a band with my friends from high school. And I don't know, this is 1990, 91 or 2. And I don't know, it was so remedial. It's hard to even look at it the same way you'd look at other bands later, but it was really special because it's the stuff you really start with in your friends and your parents' basements. And I was playing drums. There was pots and pan lids hanging from the rafters for cymbal. It was as lo-fi as it gets. I don't remember how it happened that I ended up singing for the band. I think I just had a lot, and hardcore was really hitting me a lot at the time. And I jumped into it at a moment that was really argumentative, and I don't know. And it was a perfect moment. It would explain the entire rest of my trajectory, I think, from that, the way the moment. But I don't know. I ended up singing. I had a lot of things I had to deal with or get out of me, and still do.
Yeah. So was that Basket Case? Yeah. Was that the band? Yeah,
that's right.
Nice.
You might have not heard of us.
Was that named after the movie?
A little bit. There's a long history of ripping off horror movies that go all the way back to high school, and for graphics for sure, and that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
as was The Swarm, as was
Right,
Sect.
right, yeah.
They're all like horror movies. I love.
I definitely want to get into some of that because there's definitely some questions I have, but I am also curious about maybe kind of coming up in Hamilton and the Toronto area, just like, doing our research for the Cursed episode that we did. It seems like very tight knit and it kind of small. How are you guys finding like hardcore and punk music back then? Like was there older kids? Was there a store?
There were older kids, not many. I mean, the whole scene and all the bands like Burst of Silence, Chokehold, bands I played in, it's literally like a dozen different people.
Yeah.
And maybe 20 more other friends that would come out. Like it was not big at all. And, everything looks weird, including what you guys were talking about, like the stuff on your episode from Curse 2. Like it doesn't really matter what little minutiae you get right or wrong. Cause like flattened down against history, you know what I mean? Like, those things in real time, and the way you look back at them, you kind of assume that that's, the way you look at it now, you kind of put that on it then, but that really wasn't the case then. We weren't self-aware. We weren't thinking maybe talk about this 30 years down the line, but we, there was like Jeff Beckman that played in Chokehold and played in Haymaker and Left 4 Dead. He was a couple years older, and him, Chris Logan, I mean, I think we're the same age, but we're still friends. I just saw him a week ago, but I don't know. There was some older kids, not many really. Like it really was largely the people that brought like hardcore through. Like at some point, I never saw it, but 7 Seconds, I think maybe Youth of Today, a couple things like that might have come through. But there wasn't a lot other than what we made happen at the time. Like that was really making something out of nothing. There was punk bands and a bunch of really good ones that came out of Hamilton, Forgotten Rebels, Teenage Head. There's a whole ton of really like notable punk bands, but this is not that, and there wasn't a lot of like metal that was like good or thrash. So it really was a new thing, like those guys had traveled a bit more, international hardcore, and just like punk things in general. Like I knew there were some record stores that were really good for sure. And my introduction was mostly just like the 5 most obnoxious looking things that were on the wall, and stuff. I didn't have older brothers. I had like some older friends, but it really was a handful of people. So that was pretty much the scene. And even like looking back on it, even that, if I'm talking about like about 91, 92 was the beginning of that for me. Even by like 94 or by Left 4 Dead time, most people had dispersed, like you guys probably know how that is. Your friends from when you're 16, by the time you're 19, they're not. And that's absolutely the way it goes, right? It's normal. Let alone 50, and they're still 18. But I love that. I love that I could sit down on a sidewalk with someone that's like 20 years old or someone else that's like 65, and we're all just doing the same thing there. But that's Hamilton in a nutshell. Anyway, sorry.
No, I love that. I just, we'd be looking at like Discogs or something and it'd be like, man, this dude was like in all of these, like, it seemed like it carried over from, Left 4 Dead and then into the Swarm. And then like even like going into, Ruination as well. I did find a post and I kind of wanted to ask about it. So I saw a set list from a Halloween show. It was the Swarm. And apparently it maybe 1999, you had said something about a trampoline and a super soaker full of blood. Is that
blood? Yeah.
At
a Jewish community center where we were not asked back. Yeah. Go figure. It was Halloween. We always did like Misfits covers. I think we all did that shit growing up. My great friend Dave Monroe, there was a super soaker full of blood. Josh, who now plays in Fucked Up, had a small trampoline. People were jumping on a trampoline. Like that's pretty innocuous fun in my books, but it got messy, we got in trouble. Everyone got in trouble.
Where did the blood come from? Was it just
I'm not sure. It was all over. I know where it ended up, all over the ceiling. Yeah. There may be pictures, I'm not sure.
I think if a super soaker full of blood like shows up to the show, you don't ask where it came from. That might be one of those things.
That's right. Yeah. You keep your mouth shut about that super soaker.
Another thing maybe kind of dates back to our episode, like kind of the timeline stuff, with with the Swarm maybe lasted a few years before. Was Ruination going on at the same time as that, or like did it come directly after? Or?
It got crazy. Honestly, most of these bands, Left 4 Dead included, it only was a few years. You know, they weren't significant in their time. I mean, they might seem like whatever now. Curse was the first one that really went for a significant time and went really hard and traveled a lot. There was a time though that there were 3 of them that overlapped. It was stupid. I don't know why we did stuff that way. I was also in university and working like 3 jobs and playing in like 3 bands. At one point, a band I played in locally with friends here called Countdown to Oblivion. We toured. That was like simultaneous to Ruination and the tail end of the Swarm.
Well, I kind of understand the connection with, you know, at least a few of the guys. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you have at least a few. Is it Mike from Fucked Up, and then also Andy, who was in the Swarm? But then how did you get in contact with Ebro? Was that just through playing shows like Ebro from Charles Bronson, MK Ultra?
Halachuk, Mike was the Fucked Up Mike. He played bass in Ruination. They just sort of dovetail from one into another. I don't really remember how I first knew Andy, if it was Earth Mover, his band before that, or what it was. But I knew Ebro between Crudos and we'd go see MK Ultra whenever they were anywhere near. I don't really know how all these things happened. And at the time, we just like, I don't know, you could be 5 people in a room, already have 2 bands. And by the end of the night, you'd have one different one with a different person singing and a different person playing guitar. We weren't really thinking this far ahead, you know? This is just like significant now in retrospect more than it was on purpose at the time.
Yeah.
And I drummed at the very beginning of Fucked Up too. They tell me, I hardly even remember. There was like early shows and like there was a lot going on that year. I don't know.
I mean, even like I'd read, and I could be wrong, but like I heard mention of like, you know, in Ruination, it'd be like a 60-day tour and like maybe even like touring like Europe before you even had like 7 inches out. Like how the fuck does that happen?
It does. It makes you a crazy person. I'll tell you that. Well, Andy also, he played, he kind of like stood in for Christian in the Swarm in one of the last like runs of shows when Christian, the first thing that Christian ever couldn't do, and Andy did. That's how that kind of came to be. I don't really remember how we all got in touch ever, but sorry, I completely lost the train there. What?
You were playing just, it seemed like for a band, you know, maybe I guess could it lend itself to some of the connections you had made in previous projects that you were able to kind of organize these dates, or was it just a black flag thing of like, all right, we're just getting out there and we'll figure it out as we go along?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something there. Yeah, it was, and a lot of Cursed in the way it went to like we did it in such a fashion that it was like, I think unless we hate life and ourselves and each other, we're not doing this right. And Ruination was absolutely the same kind of way. Like we bonded over this shit that we liked, and it was all that classic like drill sergeant like mentality of like about punk. And yeah, we did. We went to Europe. It was the first I'd ever been to Europe, was with Ruination. Just like, you know, want to hear a wild thing? The first show we played, we jammed, was the same day we first ever jammed. Like we jammed, made up like 6 songs and then played them right then, like from a minute ago. If that tells you how kind of, I don't know, a little experimental, but also kind of haphazard. And yeah, we just did it. And we went to Europe a long time. I saw a poster when I was cleaning out some old things of Ruination, and it was seriously like, yeah, like 2 halves that were all like 40 days each or something crazy. That like, why the fuck? Like that could have been a weekend. That could have been a week and a half, let's say, you know? So we did it that way. I mean, it's a learning experience to do shit that way. It wasn't because anyone was asking for us to, but a lot of bands did shit that way then. We went and left for 2 on 2005. We left in January, and I remember came home in March, and came home in the middle of the night with like 5 hours in between. I didn't even realize hardly that I was in my own bedroom, because it was just like, where am I now? Woke up and drove from Toronto to South by in Austin.
Oh, God.
And why? And fucking why? Like we're not trying to get on a label. Like somebody just made it happen. We're like, okay, more. And that just like went into a tour, I think with Bane. Yeah, we just, it was like go and go and go and go. It's a weird way to do shit.
what's the furthest trek you think you've made in your tenure of kind of
What do
being
you
a
mean,
touring
size
musician?
or
Like
location?
just travel distance, maybe? Yeah. That seems like a haul. Like,
Oh, God.
yeah.
I mean, Toronto to Austin, Texas is
Yeah.
good. You know, it feels like it's 30 hours away from here or something.
Right. Yeah.
And that was just did it. Just shut up and get in the van, you know?
Right.
I was gonna say at the end of Curse, there was like an interview where you said maybe punk bands just aren't supposed to exist for that long, and that's probably why. Because
Yeah, absolutely true. It's weirder that a band be around for a long time, you know, than it is for most, especially like hardcore bands in particular. Like, yeah, you see bands like old 70s bands, you know, like the Partisans or 999 and those bands, they're playing shows now. Like, fuck, man. If I'm 50, how fucking old is a person from like 1977, you know? But I don't know. If you can do it and do it well, and it's your shit and that's your life and you commit your life to it, also, why the fuck not?
It's true. Yeah, I kind of go back and forth with some of these, like, I love Judas Priest, and I don't know if personally I'm checking out like the newest record like right out of the gate, but like, you know, if that, like you said, if that's all you know, then I can't blame you for that.
That's true. And some bands like say Killing Joke, keep it up and get better and better and better. That's just like Titanic, you know, the caliber of bands like that. The last bunch of Killing Joke, holy shit, they're great. And you think it's wild because like late 70s, early 80s to still, if you got that in you, like it's weird for hardcore because it's predicated on like youth culture,
right.
and being young and kind of irrationally just livid at the world. And I think there's a lot of wisdom that comes out of that when you're young and you don't yet have all this weird like scholarly bullshit kind of messing with your definitions. You just know like that is fucked and I need to scream about that. That's as right as you're ever going to be in your whole life is that moment. You know? But at the same time, yeah, like I think I'm like a serial polygamist. I don't know what I am with bands. Like I don't think I'm always ready when they burn down. It's like, okay, cool. Next. That's how the whole story is gone. You know, like something goes for as long as that thing goes, but I like doing the thing overall, you know, that's a life thing, but you can't artificially drag out a band. Like when Cursed ended, it absolutely should have, you know, like it wouldn't have gone. It was just getting like a disaster was going to happen of one kind or another. And then some other disasters did happen after that. But no, but I mean, you got to let things take their course. So
how long after bands like Ruination and The Swarm, it seemed like maybe there was some moving around going on before you'd actually started Cursed?
They overlap. Basically, I was we on the tour that Ruination was on, or the Swarm one that Andy did. We played Sherbrooke and some stuff. I saw we went to Montreal to Quebec, and I saw Rad One, who was like another friend and still is. And I was just in a bad. I needed to like get out of Toronto and just like get out of my like living situation I was in and change the like, you know, shake the frame and do something different. And it was very, very soon. I remember it was like a week after we had played there. I think it was like, hey, if I came back here in like a week with like a skateboard and a backpack, could you help me figure out life? And I did. And I moved to Montreal. I put some shit in storage and just like went. And I thought that we were going to kind of take a break from that because the Swarm had ended just months before. It was really just months before. And then it turned out like we all, especially Christian and I, we grew up together, and, you know, people you grow up with making music, you can almost like finish each other's musical sentences and you know exactly what they mean. You don't have to think about it. I didn't realize how kind of special that was until way after that was gone, you know, like that. Nothing has ever been like that since. And that makes sense for most of us. Like if they're people you grew up with, you just know you're like on the same, you're kind of connected at the brain musically. But there wasn't much time ever. Like we even thinking we were going to stop, couldn't, and started Curse right then. And so those guys were here in Ontario, and Radwan and I were in Montreal. So that's it. Just did it.
With doing our episode, I know you may have like skimmed through it or listened to it. I really appreciate it.
I did. I was on a plane.
Thank you. You know, with the information that we had, there's only so much we can do to like interpret it. And, you know, what was there anything you noticed that maybe we missed, or perhaps that we did get wrong in our episode? I would love to know if there anything that stuck out.
You were speculating on lots of things that you actually got right.
Oh, really?
Well, High on Fire and that kind of stuff. It's true, but it was not the art of self-defense. It was Surrounded by Thieves.
Okay.
We actually wanted and almost had Billy Anderson do Cursed.
Wow.
I don't remember if it would have been 1 or would have been 2 or how that what it would have been. It didn't work out. Because we were doing stuff through Goodfellow, and he put out Blessing the Hogs, a band of Billies.
That's a Chris Logan's label, right? Chris?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Chris from Chokehold. But no, we liked High on Fire. You got that right. And stonery shit, even though like this is where Cursed gets to be a bit weird too, because we all came out of like a straight edge scene, but we weren't those kind of straight edge people. Like we weren't like dogmatic. We weren't like judgy of other people that weren't like that. Just like in the punk way. And that's what I meant about like the moment that I came into it at. It was just more like didactic, was more like argumentative and like this, what can I do different in life that's fucking me up, and take and cut out or fuck with and move around. And that was one of those things. So Chris got a little bit squirrely when half the people went one way and mainly just me didn't. And that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, people be different, but we wanted to just be like, okay, whatever, you're over there, I'm over here, we're doing this together still. But it does make a difference in certain regards when it gets really far gone. And that did happen exactly like that eventually. Yeah, I don't know, but we liked stoner rock sort of sounds. We liked everything. Like we grew up on things from Neurosis to Dead Guy to Disrupt to, like Sleep or whatever. A lot of Integrity for sure. Just like good, nasty shit. We just liked good, nasty shit. That was really it. And Christian, I mean, we got to get into that if there's anything about riffs and music, because I'm only the one that gets asked this kind of stuff because I'm the one that's still here to ask it mostly. But I think it's awesome that Tom got in touch with you.
Yeah, he he was great.
He's an awesome guy. He had like a real life and prospects for his life. I love you, Tom. You had prospects for your life. I'm glad you did real life. Because we just fucked up all our lives. So he was like a respiratory therapist and still is.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Man, go be free, do life. This is not worth wrecking. You have an actual future ahead of you. But I love that we're still friends and we still talk. It's cool. But yeah, stoner rock. Anyway, that was the sounds like that, or were always a big thing, and for all of us, So you were right about that shit. There may be little things. I don't know. I'll tell you as we go if there's anything that really stick out. But you mostly understood it. Like I can speak to. I mean, I just was there. Is the reason that we all like lost a lot of our hearing. So I remember gear things. Christian, you were also right that he didn't. It was hard. I don't even remember if he ever had a pedal board. It just wasn't like that. Like I think they really were getting a lot of like pawn shop kind of amps. And it wasn't because they were cool, because they weren't cool yet. Things like Suns and acoustics, they were there because they were $100. Like we all came from a pretty economically depressed place, and we didn't have much to work with. So I know Christian for sure was finding like Sun concert leads. There was at some point there was like multiple ones at the same time, and Trainer is from here. If you have Trainer there, yeah. Trainer's a Toronto company, so a lot of like Trainer old tube amps. It was just like a crazy cacophony of sounds, but it was mostly stuff that was pretty cheap. And Christian, I think he might have had like a blues driver in the mix at some point, but really it was mostly just pushing the shit out of heads like to a crazy
being
degree.
Loud.
Yeah, like you probably High Watts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Radwan at one point had a high watt, like a friggin' high watt, like 15-watt high watt is crushingly loud. He had like 100-watt high watt, and that was just the second guitar over top of Christian's. And that's before you get into the bass shit that was happening.
Oh, so, I can't imagine.
Yeah, a lot of permanent hearing damage happened.
One of the stories that Tom was telling me about, and this is kind of, I guess, maybe even taps back into the question of maybe where does a riff come from? So I was told that the writing, or at least for one, the ending riff of Model Home Invasion may have been created on this tour with a Breathe Resistant Coliseum, where it's 2004 tour, and I don't know what city it was in, but maybe you can
Lawrence,
finish me here.
Kansas.
Lawrence, Kansas.
It was at the sorry, or whatever. No. It was the it was the Bottleneck in Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
And one kid showed up. So we set up. I mean, Breather had a lot of gear and stuff too. You know, it was like a crazy amount of gear. So we just set the entire backline ×2 up and just like angered the bar staff a great deal and played. Like, so they just jammed out this riff. I think I was like lying on the floor in the middle of the floor with this kid, just sitting with this kid, just taking it in. I don't remember if it was from Evan or if it was from Christian, or they just like it can't. I don't really know, or which started it, but we ended up both just using it in songs. I think Breather has it, and we have it in
really?
Home Invasion. I think so. Yeah.
I'll have to listen to those two Breather Resist albums to see if I could pick that riff out.
They're great.
Were those brothers ever like at each other while they were on tour?
Evan and Ryan?
Yeah.
And no, they're great. I've known them since the National Acrobat, since the band. Did you ever know that?
Damn. No, I don't.
Yeah, that was like the Swarm. I think I met them when the Swarm played with National Acrobat. They were a neat kind of DC-ish sounding kind of vibing band. I want to say a little bit, I don't want to say swizzy, but something like they were just neat, kind of off kilter, a little noise rocky and kind of sludgy and really interesting. Yeah. And I think Evan and Ryan, that's when we all crossed paths. I don't ever remember them being anything but the best two people to each other. And they still, as far, I'm sure any brothers have their shit.
Right.
But they're they're still so supportive of each other and everything. They're great like that.
Well, I guess with, kind of finding out that like a riff like that, it like comes from just kind of maybe pissing people off. What do you remember much of the writing process for two? How did these songs kind of take form? Did you start with a fresh slate after one? Did some of that stuff, come from even around those sessions? Like, what was the writing for that record like?
We very seldom had a really good system to writing. It just kind of came up organically, like from zero to like SECT is the first band I ever played in that someone's like, here's the entire record, do your thing to it, and that's the way we have to do it. We're on like 2 coasts and 2 countries and all that. But what I was really used to was just being even bands that are like jam firsthand, there's people that like write all this stuff and they just, completely show you a song. Most of Cursed, for the most part at least, was just entirely starting from little bits of riffs, or if it ever came from me, which like a handful of them did, not much, but I would have to mouth riff to Christian and he would know what I meant. But his riffs, yeah, he would usually start with a riff and him and Mike, our drummer, would kind of whoop it up, and I don't know, it would just go up from zero to taking form. I never really thought about it. We never thought about it, it wasn't conscious like that.
What about there were a few things that I thought maybe they seemed it created like kind of an atmosphere. They seemed kind of like off the cuff, like and Tom kind of, he had like maybe confirmed some of this with like, there's the piano part maybe like kind of on 2, and maybe even like the violins in the outro of that album. Can you maybe attest to how some of those things are those in the studio, or are those predetermined how you might do something like that?
We did that on the fly.
That's awesome.
The person that actually made 2, Ian Blurton is his name. He's a friend and he's a rocker. He's just like a doomy stoner rock, like classic rock guy. He's amazing. He still plays. I've driven his band multiple times across the continent and back. He's kind of like a Billy Gibbons type for us up here. But he really understood, like he likes volume, he's like a mad amp kind of guy. So it was like a really good match to have him do Cursed. And 2, like it was so loud and he produced it like that. So if anything, the things that we ever thought after the fact was like a little bit muddy, but like, yeah, that's what it did sound like. It was kind of like it was a wall. There was a lot of things about that production I could tell you for sure that wouldn't be in the liner notes. That violinist, her name is Julie Penner, and do you know Broken Social Scene? They're like a kind of indie band up here.
That sounds really familiar. Yeah,
they do a lot of festival things. But Ian, I mean, a good producer just kind of knows to go with your ideas and help you steer them where you need to. And he always had a good like kind of list of people, so he was open to the intro came together, and then we thought like, yeah, we need to reprise that. It'd be really neat. And the rainstorm that's on that was just like an actual rainstorm. It was like this old place that definitely is knocked down for condos years and years ago now, called Chemical Sound. Yeah, we just dragged a mic outside in the alley in this place and recorded that storm. And yeah, we just had her kind of, I don't remember like the thought process. It wasn't ever a big part of it. Like, we want to do this thing. Here's a person, get them in here. And then she just kind of like took in the song and learned it and just did it. And then we put it away. It was like supposed to be kind of a hidden track at the end on the CD.
Ian worked on that first Burning Love record too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's terrific. He's played in some bands. He was in a band called Come On. He's in a band now called Ian Blurton's Future Now. It's amazing. He played in a really neat band up here called Bionic. That was like a really under loved or underknown, probably outside of like Ontario and Quebec. Just absolutely like Queens of the Stone Age kind of things, but like people from that same scene that were playing shit like that the entire time. That's, if you ever want to check out a really neat record, and there's some fucking riffs. Bionic, a record called Deliverance, will do it for you.
What was that like, working with Ian on something like, 1 and 2, and then also like here's like a completely different kind of band of people. What was that experience like going from those 2 different sessions?
It was pretty seamless. I don't know. He's really level. But I mean, Burning Love was like intentionally, was when Curse started to get really dark and stuff was going really off the rails. I wanted, just like we were saying before, like you have a band, then you just make another one. It doesn't mean you're stopping that first one. You're just like do a different thing and a different thing and like a different combination. But I wanted to try and do something that was like, I don't know, Curse was sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy of terrible luck and terrible things happening, and I just wanted something that didn't have the same baggage, but I really missed when Cursed had still been more fun than dark. And Burning Love is a lot of these guys that were like 18, 19 years old, and they all kind of grew up on Hot Snakes, and I grew up on Black Flag. We're like, well, fuck it. Let's see what happens if we throw that shit all together. And we just figured out whatever that would sound like, But no, Blurton and that was pretty much the same process. It was within a few years of that too.
Did you have to kind of be the band dad if everybody else in the band was like a bit younger than you?
Maybe a little bit, like they hadn't really toured.
Yeah.
And immediately we're thrown into this awful world of like 30-hour drives. And I feel bad. They didn't sign up for the Black Flag regiment at all. No, but we had absolutely great times. We went all over Europe. We went all over the States. We went all over Canada. It was cool. Like I know those things suck, but I know enough too by then too. I'm like, I know even if you feel like you hate this is going to be the shit you remember forever doing. And it'd be good that you did it when you could. But of course that hits a wall. Like everybody hit like 26 and they're like, but my girlfriend and my job and my apartment. I'm like, you get it now, right? You get why I'm such a grouchy old guy now. Yeah. And then you just go back for more and mess your life up even more.
I love that. And then, going from Ian to Kurt, who I know you've known for quite some time. Didn't like Curse play some of their first shows with like Converge even?
That's right. Yeah. Montreal. There was a weekend. The first show we played at Lex, a place called Sal Lex in Montreal, was I think with Converge. I think that's where we first were talking about. It was really new for Deathwish was pretty young at that point. I had just kind of started, done some 7 inches. I think that's the night even we figured out to work together, like right on the spot. So there was no weird like label, like asking around. It was just like happened organically like that, right out of the gate.
And Jake did or may have done art for one, right?
He did the thing with the vines, like that illustration stuff he did. Yeah, he did that. And working with Kurt has always been great. I mean, Curse never got to, but Burning Love, he did stuff at God City. SECT has done stuff at God City. And I love working with Kurt because he knows, same, we come from the same time and place. And I think he knows, knows what you mean by stuff and what gets you what sound. I mean, a lot of bands go to him and the bands sound like a little the same, but that's not because he can't do whatever, because he can do whatever. He does like Chelsea Wolfe things. He does all kinds of stuff. He just gets known for that kind of sludgy, like hardcore, and does it really well.
Yeah, I mean, he recorded fucking Orchid Chaos is Me. He recorded
Yeah.
that, so it's like not
Yeah.
all High on Fire.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
I think he did that Grief, that the Grief, like that. It's
Come to
not
Grief.
Grief. Yeah, Come to Grief.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
he
yeah.
did that recent one and stuff like that. He's great at too.
Sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, he definitely can make you sound huge, but then yeah, somebody like you said, like Chelsea Wolf, I'm just like, let's get, kind of slow
Yeah.
and haunting and
Right.
does
Yeah,
it
How could
perfectly.
how could you be a producer and not want to dip your toes in all the sounds like that when you're that good at it?
Absolutely. I do want to circle back, if I may, to on the topic of artwork too, because obviously we mentioned one, but two obviously has the kind of the little snippet from The Devil Rides Out with the he goat, and it seems like you've certainly lifted through things with like the merch. Like I believe on the Death Wish website you can still see there's like Omen shirts, and like I think I saw in the demo, like the CDR, there was like a Vincent Price image as well. Where does your love for film and horror come from? Can you remember a moment where you were like kind of taken by some of the imagery and stuff like that?
Damn, I can't really remember like a first thing, but it definitely goes back. Like Left 4 Dead, most of the entire discography we did with me drumming and Jeff playing guitar, like just in terms of writing the songs in like an afternoon in his parents' basement. After watching a pile of fucked up like Texas Chainsaw movie, like just a
Yeah.
pile of fucked up horror movies. So that like the themes definitely, but even like my high school bands, I remember I had like a tape and a shirt that had like a thing from Ken Russell, The Devils on it. So I think it always like the imagery of horror. I don't know. I've always been blatantly stealing images from horror movies and putting them on antisocial things. And Answer Me, I definitely owe Answer Me probably at least like $17. Although I paid for the Answer Me's, but a lot of stuff came out of that too.
Can you tell me what I think I kind of know, but what do you know? Do you remember what's on the Polygraph track on one? Is that like Rosemary's Baby or The Omen? There's like some sampling going on in that track Polygraph.
Yes. Sorry, I had to place it. They talk about murder, that business.
I think so. Yeah.
I took that out of a documentary. It was like a mishmash of things. I'm getting it mixed up with the intro to 3.
3. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we did the research for 3, one of the people in Cursed was like, yeah, there's a lot of samples, but we can't tell you what they are.
They just didn't. No, some of them were like a psychiatric, like a record of psychiatry, an LP about treating like psychiatric disorders.
Damn.
So that thing about the patient is asleep and walking in the daytime and sleeping. Part of it was Harry Dean Stanton and the extras for Repo Man.
Hell yeah.
He's just amazingly curmudgeonly sitting on a couch and just being so combative at every single question. That thing about like you could leave here, you don't know 5 minutes from now what's going to happen. Like everything's a fucking flip. Fuck off. Yeah. But I think the Polygraph thing was probably, I worked at a video store. I do again now. Yeah, I was just taking home a lot of neat documentaries. It could have been Year of the Pig or The Killing of America or something with just like kind of Mondo, sort of snuffy live footage of disasters and things like that.
I watched an interview of the old video store you worked in, and I was going to ask if you were still like mourning the loss of that video store.
I really am. I don't
Suspect Video and Culture.
That's right. Yeah, it was right downtown in Toronto. I don't know how versed you are in Toronto, but it's just been going through what like most big cities in the entire world have been going through in the last 20 years, where they just can't hollow it out fast enough, and tear things down to make suburban bullshit in the middle of a metropolitan city. And that place was really special. It was there from like 1991 to 2015, and it was just like cult cinema. Yeah, it was a real big part of my Toronto. So I work again at a place here now that's like, not to say it's a sale and we just sell, but it's records and the exact same kind of piles of movies. So
yeah, is it Vinegar Syndrome?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Love the work they do. It's incredible.
Yeah, they're awesome. And it couldn't be a better fit because I'm running a floor of records in the basement too. So with like on both fronts, like I'm working in that video store for 15 years. My head is full of all these like minutia and factoids about just exactly that, like exploitation cinema and weird giallos and horror. it's only good for exactly this job. And then you add the record part too. I'm like, I love it. This is great. This is what it feels like to like enjoy a job.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that for?
It'll be 2 years in the spring. Yeah, we opened up the store here, the first Canadian store.
Man,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
I am curious though, like I was just kind of thinking about it because, maybe if you look at the location settings of a lot of movies that say they take place in like Chicago or wherever, a lot of them are oftentimes filmed in Toronto. Have you ever come across some of the shoots maybe while living in Toronto?
Absolutely. Living here, yeah, it's been a thing. It was a thing already, and definitely more in the last 10 years. Just
Sure.
because like the money from there's a whole part of town that's just like a studio land, because it's cheaper up here. And Vancouver has the same sort of thing too, where they're pretend it's like Oregon. It's just like that's just straight up Vancouver, dude. What are you talking about? So yeah, I remember like USPS boxes in the middle of Bay Street here, just like what the oh yeah, it's a movie. All right. Why is there a New York City cop car? Oh, it's yeah.
It maybe in the terms of like some B or exploitation, is there maybe like aside from like maybe like Cronenberg, is there like a Canadian director who you think maybe should get more praise?
More love?
Yeah.
It's more like individual movies. After
Sure.
after Cronenberg, there's not too many people that have a lot of good movies, but definitely there's stuff like Clear Cut, which is like a native, like a revenge movie. It's just like a really jaw clenching kind of angry movie. Spasms. There's a whole lot, man. Kathy's Curse. There's a whole history of really good Canadian exploitation film.
You kind of touched on it earlier, but I was gonna ask, like the new SECT album, the newest one, sounds a little bit different than the previous ones. Like it's slower and it's just the sound without the vocals is like sad. Did you kind of like lean all the people in the band into like, you're like, I want to write a sad record, or did they already write out the music and you just like wrote your lyrics to match that?
Well, not just because of me, but just all of us, we definitely talked about ahead of time. Like it was intentional. Because the moment is what it is, like it really is a fucking awful time to be living through.
Right.
If you come from like a lifetime of like idealism and activist circles. I mean, there's no way around it. We're just like lost all the fights in somewhere just now, like formally, it doesn't mean you give up on like the point of the things and keep trying and trying and trying, but it couldn't, like hardcore isn't bullshit to me, or any of us. And I don't know, like it was so big that I think we talked about this. And then they came out of that talking from it with like, so I guess to some degree, yeah, we decided to write a record like that. Yeah, like when you've already been like screaming at the top of your lungs your entire life, and then this shit all happens. What do you do to be like, hey, even this isn't fucking normal. Like this is not a normal moment. Like that's what that line, there's not a fuck you left in the world that can cover all this. That's what that means. Like I can't, and it's even weird to me. So I had to kind of go out of a comfort zone. And it's really scary to me to think about doing singy parts because I hate on that shit so much when people have like the singy part and the loud part. But I think it came out more like in the Neurosis way than it did in the
yes, definitely
like a screamo whatever way. But that was honestly the point, because like when you're angry at shit, you don't want to bullshit it. There's reasons. It's not just like fucking screamy face, bullshit tough guy thing. It's like no, I'm angry because of something, and this is like I have to say why. And it's the same. It needs to be the same when you're just kind of crushed by a moment. So it needed to sound like that, like discordant and just sort of like a dirge, like a funeral, because that's what the moment feels like. And of course, it's still a fight, and of course you're still angry and all that shit. But it's like, okay, if we're just fucking like on autopilot making hardcore now, that's kind of bullshit, So that was the point of that, whether it was taken well or not. And it seems like it was taken well, and I'm glad for that. But I've never tried to do anything because so it would be like whether or not that had worked. It's like that's how we needed to do that. And it also the band, like those guys come from really tight, really kind of pro, in terms of their playing. They're really sharp and it's a different world. Like when we're talking about Christian and Curse and the stuff we grew up at, it was really a different scenario. Like it was not that proper. It wasn't that, I don't know.
A lot of feeling.
It was
like
exactly. It was
Right.
more vibe than anything else, you know? Like the riffs are like the particulars are really secondary to that. Um, so Sect was like, I had to get over that because it was the only way we could do that. But like playing with people that were so good, they were like machines, you know, and everything was like dead on. But they wanted to play with me because of bands like Cursed and things that just sounded like just different and a little bit more like unhinged, right? And I'm just wanted to do a new thing with whoever was left at that point. And honestly, we're all, I mean, sorry, I'm 50, right? We're talking about 1991 and 2025. So of course it's like, yeah, who's still here and what cool shit can we do and how can we do it? And it took a few records to get to that, for it to gel, you know? Like the very first thing, the 12-inch, the self-titled thing was actually supposed to be a demo. It was me driving to North Carolina from Ontario and we recorded, and Jimmy was really worried because I lost my voice recording, and I've never had a system. It's just like scream, shut up, scream harder, like scream more. And he's like, "Oh, I guess you're gonna have to come back and do this another time. Don't worry, dude." I'm like, "Oh no, this is it. Just let me keep going." And it gets bloodied and terrible, and then it like something comes out on top of that. It's the sound of injuring yourself permanently. That's my style. But yeah, so that is what that 12-inch is. So like, no, that's the take. That's actually it. Like that's what it's going to be if I come back and do it too. So I don't know. Playing with them has been really, really interesting. But it took to probably Blood of the Beasts or maybe No Cure for Death that it really starts to gel because you can only do so much from remote control, you know, and you have to kind of be in a room or on a stage or in a van together. And it took, you know, like 6 or 7 years of that and being in the same room and actually like playing off each other for it to get like that. And I think Plagues is absolutely like finally we could do what the fuck we want because we're all in the same place, you know?
Like we talked about, you've done design on a lot of your album covers on some of the Burning Love records. You talked about using like organs and shit for like the cover.
Yeah.
Have you done anything wild like that for like the Sect covers or?
No, actually the first thing we had, speaking of Ryan Patterson, Louisville's own.
Right.
Sorry, Louisville's own. He's just a really good friend and he knows where I'm coming from. And much in the same way as Curse 3 and John Baisley, it was like a long conversation about what the record was about. And everything on that Curse 3 cover, the broken arrows, the horns, is like literally his metaphor, but it's like 4 things that are on the record. Like your ability to defend yourself is like kind of broken. And yeah, I talked a lot with Ryan about Plagues because I'd always wanted to have his like old school kind of high contrast collage art. I love it. And yeah, finally got the chance with Plagues. So there's little things like it's like a globe. There's tiny hints of a swastika that just peek out. And I wanted to be like, gotta be very careful when you fuck with shit like that. But it's just, because that actually is the insinuation. And I don't think we'd argue now that that's where it is, where it's going. And it's where it is, right?
That's like kind of what six black lines on the, that's
exactly
what that song is about.
It's like,
right.
This is, say it out loud. This is that, dude, you know? Yeah. But the art wise, yeah, that was really cool to be able to do that with Ryan because he knows where I'm coming from and we talk a lot. And I explained it and he made exactly the perfect cover for that.
I loved I love the record and I love the vocal performance on it. And I got a real kick out of reading that you had kind of set up like a DIY like kind of vocal booth perhaps at Holy Mountain, which
Holy Mountain
I am a huge fan of. Shout out Holy Mountain.
That's awesome.
Shit fucking kicks ass. Any what was that like? How did you construct something on your own like that? Like what goes into
No, it's where we had to do Plagues in like a bunch of steps because it was still coming out of the pandemic. We all went to Portland first and Andy did the drums, and that's like we just hadn't even been in a room together for a while because of the pandemic. So we did the drums there and then we like talked a lot as we did them and sorted the rest of it out. And Jimmy and Scott did the guitar stuff in North Carolina. And then separately from that, I came down. Scott like engineered it. He actually recorded it. It wasn't me with Holy Mountain. It was just like Danny was really kind enough to let us use that space. But it also was really perfect acoustically because it's like rows of racking full of t-shirts. So it's like deadening. It's like perfectly sound like Yeah. Uh, so yeah, we just did the entire thing in between piles of t-shirts, the vocals anyway. Yeah, it's probably some videos of it.
Have y'all been able to do in? I know like a lot of times it's kind of a little bit longer of a process with y'all because you're in such different spaces. Have y'all been able to do anything since the album came out? I know you have like some shows coming up like this summer.
Yeah, we do. It's hard for us, like we mainly because of the pandemic more than anything. Like there's none of us are going anywhere at this point. Like this is what, we could ride this shit out as long as we want. Like we got nothing. That's a really liberating thing about SECT for me after years of a lot of fucking drama and dark shit with people. We're just old hardcore kids that want to hang out and eat fucking snacks and like play in a, it's weird to fly in an airplane to play in a basement, but it's great. Like it's all we want to do. There's no end goal. There's no like money we have to make to do it. Just like just as long as we can still do it, we're happy to do it. Because like it's so far past the most people's point of the stuff you're around when you're a kid. Like you have to just take every moment for what it is and not for what you are or what it used to be. Like we'll open for bands that are young, and it's like, of course we do. Well, yeah, that's it's not 30 years ago, like that's how it should be. It's all interaction, right?
Speaking of shows too, you're also going to be performing at Prepare the Ground in Toronto. Finally, Burning Love. Everybody, God. Knock on wood. God,
don't let our guitar player ride a bicycle for at least 2 months before this.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened last time. And it was just random. It wasn't his anyone's fault. He got in a bike wreck. He's maybe coming back from school or something. And he just like shattered his wrist. And he was going to try and play if the cast had been off, but it would have killed because you just can't replace him. He's really good. Pat is, he's pretty hard to replace. So we just had to like eat it and not do it. And now gonna do it
with this festival. This is the second year, I believe. Like what makes Prepare the Ground kind of like the perfect venue for a reunion or a final show rather, like this?
I don't know, it's a really good, the concept of it all is pretty like experimental but political, different things across the board. I really like the vibe and the point of Prepare the Ground. And Burning Love is similarly, everybody loved a lot of, it's after a Yob song, and Burning Love is heavy on a lot of it's the same doomy stuff, as much as we played more like a little more garagey or whatever punk things. It's still, we all listen to the same shit, the rest of the day, just good loud stuff. So I don't know, it's neat. There's things like Midwife are playing it.
Love that
so
record.
Much. Same. I'm excited to see that. Uniform did last year. Like it's a really neat spread of interesting stuff. So I couldn't ask for a better excuse to do like a last Burning Love show.
I'm assuming you'll get to see like a lot of friends, maybe some new. I know Baroness is playing like both of their like Red and Blue, and should be
and
cool.
Coliseum and Young Widows and
Right.
Photocrime are going to be. I think we're all doing it together. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. It couldn't get any better than that.
So far for your own thing, Unwell, you've released like 5 or 6 songs, like one at a time, kind of. Are you planning on coming out with a full record or like
actually like 5 or so of them. There's a lot. It turns out you do need other people to do music. You can do it, and I've done all those things that I posted was just to kind of keep it moving. But that shit happened over lockdown. And when we all didn't have our events that we needed, we didn't have our medicine for all this shit and didn't even know it was going to come back. Really, if you remember what 2020 felt like, we don't know. But a lot of terrible things were happening, and I was trying to metabolize them. And I had meant to actually learn guitar, not just enough to explain mouth riffs to a bandmate, but try to do something with it. So I just, I'm all right, we had that government cheese here. We had that pandemic money. And I still live like a punker. So it was just that was a huge amount of money for me. And I still took care of everything and was able to buy all the shit I needed to try making music, from pedals to guitars, and kind of got one of everything to see what I clicked with. And turned out I clicked with either super twangy, sad shit or super fuzzy, loud shit. So honestly, there's over 100 songs that are organized. Yeah, like they're all over the place, and you probably glean that from the songs that I posted. But
Yeah.
they're all, but they'll make sense, and like the records will be like thematically sounding. There's mellower ones and there's louder ones, but overall, it's almost like the Boris without the talent. It's like Boris, like just but with no talent. Just like whatever you want to do, because I didn't know what was happening, and I just, like I said about the SECT record, I want to be as like forthcoming with things that are I'm just sad. I don't know what the fuck is happening. I don't know what any of us are supposed to do about this moment. I want that to be as kind of just straightforward as just something angry and predictably screamy and loud would be. So I really didn't try to set any walls around what that would sound like, just like make a sound and refine it. And I had to retrack so many things as I got better at like home recording. But yeah, it's really hard it's like editing yourself with writing. Like it's really hard to get a sense. You're so far down the fucking rabbit hole. And things like OCD and ADD combination with that, with like garage band, and you have like 55 fucking tracks running. Well, I do anyway. So just tying like 100+ songs up in these crazy knots. I was drumming on one just like 2 hours ago before I got home, to try and add drums to something. I don't know. It turns out it helps to have people to bounce shit off of, but I really made it like I really fucking want to do this myself. It's very symbolic for me that I want, but I don't want it to suffer. Like I want to be able to be reasonable enough to be like, all right, I need to hand this over. And Rad One has offered, and Jonah from Fucked Up has offered to help. So I'm probably going to put things in their more capable mixing hands.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So someone can tell me like, that's bullshit. You need to redo that. That's way out of tune. You only get an ear as you do it. And I was like writing the most stuff before I had that ear. So I kind of, things feel like wrong, but that thing when you're recording, and Kurt's said this too, like, don't you get too attached to that first mix, because then it's going to sound like everything after is wrong. And that's just, it wasn't there yet. That was the thing. So I have that trouble, but it's only me fighting against me about it.
I certainly, I think for any creative person, it's very hard to, or maybe I'm projecting a little bit here, but I feel like there have been so many times where I tried to, get creative, and I just didn't like it. I'm like, this sucks. I'm going to stop. But one thing that I definitely resonate with, or at least like the phrase, and I believe it was our dear Andrew Nolan was maybe an influence in this project as well. Just make something every day.
Every day.
So
that's
cool.
exactly. Yeah. He did. He said that shit.
How do you power through? Like, how do you, avoid those things maybe in your head? Like this sucks. Like, do you just power through it?
I guess I do, but it's only me to do it. So now it's been like going on 4 years. I'm like, shit. Okay. But don't leave it that long that it never happens. It's big. And he's absolutely, that was the best advice anybody's, just make something, like make a sound and don't second guess it so much. So a couple of the songs like that Gordon Lightfoot thing that's up there was like, whatever the fuck this comes out at, I'm doing a thing today, front to back, just for the exercise of like, shut up, put it in the world. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be stuff you hate about it. I don't know. I'm still learning it all. So it's hard. I don't know.
As a musical songwriter, and guitar player, who are some of your influences in that realm?
Shit. Damn. I hadn't even thought about that, to be super honest. I don't, I couldn't even say that anything like that is in my head when I'm doing it. It usually it starts with a lyrical thing, and then everything wraps around that.
Gotcha.
That song, there's a song called Chasm that was just for a couple weeks ago that I put up, a thing on Gaza. That absolutely like went from the middle, and just from a vocal idea, like in both directions, forward and backward, like it went out from the middle, and I had to add a beginning, and like, I don't know. I'm trying not to overthink it. It's hard to learn when to just shut up and walk away, come back to it. Some of it I let sit for like 2 years, and just now I'm like, okay, now I know what to do with that. I'm not good enough to have the influences yet on guitar. It would be a terribly disparaging thing if anybody I said, it's like, I'm trying to be like that, because I do not. It's not
Steve
good.
Vai.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yngwie, Vai, all the gods.
I really hear a lot of that on the air, like all that neoclassical shred.
You got
for
that.
sure.
Okay, good. You picked up on that.
I mostly heard in the spoken word the spoken word song that you put out.
That's Yngwie's trilogy.
Steve Vai.
Steve Vai's.
You you weren't able to play Prepare the Ground last year with Burning Love, but you did get to perform as Unwell.
Yes.
What was that process like, and bringing in some other people to kind of play along with you?
Had some good friends that offered to help me do it and make it a thing. My friend Peter, who plays guitar and helps me with lots of recording stuff. Dexter, who drums, and he plays in a bunch of really good bands here, and Jay, who plays bass in Cancer Bats, who's playing bass. Yeah. Honestly, it was terrifying in a way. Like I've done some like reading tours for stuff I've written, and that shit is way more scary than and vulnerable than anything you could ever do in a hardcore band. Like there's nothing else happening in that room but like this right now, there's just like fluorescent lights and just that, and something that takes like a half an hour to come around to the point of. It's really scary. So that was the first time. It was a really washed out kind of show. It was not very big, and I'm really glad for that. Some friends were there. It was just, I don't know. I just had to like just go over and over and over it in my head and not think about anything else till it was done. But it went through fine. I know I didn't have to stop. So that's what I was measuring. I'm like, hey, but it's like really this, I've never had to like live to play a guitar and sing at the same time. That was, I need to practice that a bunch more before I can do that more. But we're talking about jamming it out just to do the louder stuff and some other songs.
The newest song you put out also has like bass on it. So I'm assuming you kind of learned to play bass and guitar at the same time. What's been kind of the most fun in any of your roles playing music? What's been the most fun?
I really think a lot of the time when I think something in my head is a guitar riff, I've learned through all this that it's a bass line. I really enjoy bass. Like I like the sound. I like playing a guitar, but whenever I'm like doing the bass shit, I'm like, I feel like I groove with that really well. And like we're saying about riffs that kind of bounce and they kind of jump around, that's really that's a bass thing.
Did you like programming the drums for the newest song, or did you like hate that?
It's a mix. Like I also was doing that in an apartment in lockdown, so I couldn't. That's also why Unwell sounds like it does. I had to do it like if I was doing it here, and I do it here. I mean, I got guitars next to me here, like next to my bed. So I had to do it at a volume. You can do it in a shared house with, neighbors elsewhere in your house. That's why it kind of sounds like that. But yeah, bass, I really enjoy it.
Well, we've taken up a lot of your time. I really appreciate it. I am curious, with the SECT record and the solo project, and with some of the Burning Love stuff coming up as well. Is there anything that you hope to? There's already so much going on. Is there anything else that you'd hope to accomplish this year, or like going forward? Play live more, write more, I guess, in life and music.
I have a weird relationship with accomplishment. I always feel like I fucked it up and I never got to something I was trying to do. And that's been like some kind of a bizarre dysfunctional driving force to like, this time I'll get it right. And honestly, Plagues Upon Plagues largely felt like I finally got right what I was trying to say. And a lot of things in Unwell, there's some things that I realize like are themes that I kind of exercise because I need to do them. And there was a thing actually that kind of relates to Cursed about losing somebody to addiction, that there's an Unwell song about. And I realized it's not that I'm like a broken record repeating itself. It's that like, I didn't get it right yet for myself, and sometimes I take a few runs at it because it was a Burning Love song too that was on the same thing. I'm like, this is the one. So it's almost like a weird incantation that you finally get right. I'm like, okay, I can let that go. No one else would even know that, but I know that, so I don't know. I don't know what I expect out of anything anymore. It's been a while. Like, I'm just happy to be able to do it. It's obnoxious to be this much older and expect the world to come to you and to be what you knew it as, when it's just like, that's not ever been the way. And when hardcore hit me as a kid, it's because of what it was. And this is what it was, like people, if everybody ever stayed around, if everyone that had ever been part of it just never left, it'd be a different world. It wouldn't necessarily be a good thing. Being like a diehard is a kind of a stupid undertaking. It is. It's weird. Like, you don't want to be dogmatic. Like, I love it because I love communicating. I like expressing. I like art. I like music. And I have a lot of damage I need to get out of my head. And music's the only way I've ever been able to. So whatever it's got to fucking sound like, I just need to do it. No one even has to give a fuck, That's it. Yeah. Hey, we didn't talk about favorite riffs.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite? What's
I was ready for this one, man.
Ah, shit.
You,
I'm
you-
sorry.
you can waste a bit more of my time if it's about riffs.
I love it. I'd love to
There's
hear it.
also there's a few things about two. I'm sorry if I took us way off course. There's a couple things about the production that you'd probably want to know that I realized I wrote down when I was making notes. Some cool shit that wouldn't be in liners or stories. There was a vocal booth that was actually not a vocal booth, but a guitar cabinet, like a coffin for guitar cabinets to go in. And that's where I did all the vocals for two.
Oh my God.
And
Jeez.
yeah, it was inside like a coffin sort of structure. And I think the Weaker Thans, as it sounds like a weird stretch, but I don't know if Ian might have made that record, but definitely Chemical
Yeah,
Sound.
he did.
It
He
was
did a bunch of Weaker Than stuff.
Yeah, this is like nearby and the same time. And I think it was theirs for some reason. So vocals were largely in that. And it was a really cool thing he did with a snare drum, where he had this piece of sheet metal and he mic'd it where it like came like this just specifically for the snare. Cause Mike had, I think it was a Black Beauty, like a really beautiful old snare that was really fucking deep. He always had these crazy big snares. But they mic'd it and reamped it down a piece of sheet metal with a mic at the other end of it, but just enough so it's like a like every time. So there was a lot of neat little things like that in it. And the other thing, Old Money, there's a song on two. You just made me remember this shit because I had to like kind of do some homework myself for this, but I forgot. That was my favorite Curse song, and we could not fucking play it. Like we somehow managed to record it, something that we couldn't actually play again. Like the take that was recording it was like there was something in a drum fill that was off. I remember exactly what it was, but for whatever reason, it fucked us all up when we tried to do it. So we just we maybe played it once. That was it.
Damn.
Yeah, that's it.
I love that. How many shows do you think you played just of that record?
Man, I know we played over 200 in 2005.
Just in that,
Jeez.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So what, times all that time.
Yeah,
lot.
right. Yeah.
I mean, over
My-
1,000. And it wasn't because the world was asking for 1,000 shows. It was just like, I think this is what you do. Yeah.
I was gonna say I can't imagine playing 200 shows and not making any money from it.
Oh, we didn't. We really didn't. And we just hated it. We were literally like stealing from gas stations to eat food. We're like, I think we're doing the Black Flag thing. Steal a chocolate bar.
We did it, guys.
Yeah, I think we made it. Yeah, it's fucked up. Do you guys play in bands?
We have here and there.
We have, yeah.
Nothing that is out or well, Swindle's is, but not mine.
What do you do, Swindle?
I play drums mostly. I started on guitar, but I'm mostly play drums. So what about your favorite riffs, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, riffs. All right, I thought of a few that I really love. There's a Queen riff that's from the first Queen record called Mother and Son. It pretty much comes right out of the gate with this crazy fucking riff. And Iron Monkey repurposed it on an Iron Monkey record. So that's one. I don't know if you don't want me to mouth riff it at you, do you?
Hey, we do all the time.
Okay.
But if you I won't.
No. Bow now. Bow now. Wow now. I don't know. It's kind of dirty. It's great. There's an Integrity riff from Systems Overload called Salvation's Malevolence. Do you know that one that goes it's just mid-tempo and it just makes me want to like punch holes in things. But those dudes, especially like the Melnick era Integrity, I've been really revisiting lately a lot. Those Who Fear Tomorrow.
Yes,
oh yeah.
The first riff off that record is always the Integrity riff for me.
Yeah.
The Misha or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Just covered to death the intro. We did it once for a Halloween show. It was, we tried.
You didn't know Vocal Test?
Vocal Test is on my gym playlist because it's literally just screaming.
Yeah. It's a perfect one for that, man. Okay, so I'd say Salvation's Malevolence, that Queen riff or / Iron Monkey. And do you guys like Witchery at all?
I don't know if I'm familiar.
I haven't listened.
They're a Swedish band, like a blackish thrash band but I think that they're kind of maybe a joke band over there. And when we did, because Curse did some stuff with Dysphere and Rotten Sound. We did like a week.
Sick.
Yeah, it was awesome. And they're like Dismember related people. And they laughed their ass off that I liked Witchery. Because I guess it was like, I don't know what is it, like Hate Beak, like something that's just like they're being goofy on purpose. But I'm like, fuck, if that's a joke, that's better than most bands that are trying to be serious. Because fuck, it just sounds like 80s thrash, but amped up really fast. And at least up to, there's a record called Symphony for the Devil. All the ones up to that they're people from The Haunted and some other people like that play in Witchery. But it's so, I don't know, it's just right. Like it's kind of like nasty, evil thrash. But there's a riff. Do you guys like Metal Church?
Yeah, love. Man,
Okay.
I got the first few records somewhere in there. Yeah.
You need to find a Witchery song. It's instrumental called Bone Mill, and it's just like I think it's Metal Church, the song.
Oh, Metal Church by Metal Church from
Is that
Metal
it?
Church. Yeah, they got
I think that's it.
Yeah, it's like that. It's got a really sick intro.
Yeah, they just do that twice as fast.
I love that.
Crazy. Like there's flange. I swear there's flange on the drums.
Because
It's
like, I think if I'm thinking of the right song, it's like Palm Unit. It's like, yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a bad thing happening in a horror movie with a car chase. It's fucking. I love that. I gotta check that out. Oh,
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
they're great.
I never thought we'd be talking about Metal Church on this episode. To be
They're awesome. Yeah.
Well, on the topic of music, just maybe we kind of typically will end on some recommendations. I don't know if maybe you're listening to anything as of late. It could be heavy or non. I would love to hear anything that you would recommend to the folks listening.
I prepared right here on my bed.
Love it.
All right. Been revisiting this Jerusalem. Do you know this record at all?
I don't. Look at
this
that.
Is a British. This is absolutely like the missing link between like Zeppelin and Sabbath and anything old and culty. Ian Gillan from Deep Purple produced it.
Oh,
and
shit.
It was a band that it's like if the world knew this record, this would be up there with anything classic rock. It's just like kind of morbid and weirdly like not hi-fi, not lo-fi. Yeah, Jerusalem. I think it's just the self-titled, and it's weird because there's like a Jesus-y Jerusalem, which tracks.
Of course,
it's not that one. So you got to find this one. It's on Dirham, the label that did lots of like Moody Blues and lots of stuff of the time. But yeah, Jerusalem is, if you like heavy, culty, heavy rock, early like 70s stuff, it's absolutely so it'll get inside you. It's awesome. Terry Callier. I don't know. You guys listen to a lot of like folky, jazzy things.
Sure.
But he's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
It's like a 60s like folk jazz record. It's just kind of sad and a little bit spooky and really neat. I don't know. It kind of grabs me. And this is a big one, but Godbelow from Syracuse. You guys ever know this band?
You're turning me on to lots of new stuff, man. I don't know.
All right. Nice. They were from Syracuse. It's a bit of a running joke with SECT because the dude that really fucked over Earth Crisis, that was part of their crew, and I guess it like some shit happened, like dumb, whatever, long ago shit. It doesn't matter at this point, but it's his band. And it's neat. We played with them a lot. The Swarm, actually, I think the last Swarm show they played, Ringworm and Godbelow and the Swarm. It's one of those bands with a million fucking guitar players. There's just so much guitar. But it's, yeah, I don't know. It's like a band that it wouldn't make sense. The singer sounds perfect, but I can't even picture him in any other scenario than exactly that record. But it's like we're saying, it's got like kind of ups and down, jumpy, bouncy, really neat riffs. So for like, it's weird. I have guilty pleasures that are kind of meathead like, you know, it's not my general thing, but like Integrity, like, yeah, oh yeah, fuck, of course. Like I've never not liked that. And it's kind of one of those, like it's like a sad, in the Crowbar way. It's kind of like how they're kind of like tough, sad, dealing with their feelings. Kind
You're
of
really speaking our language talking about Crowbar.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. What's your favorite?
My favorite record is the self-titled.
Yeah.
Is it?
Self-titled's great. I mean,
Sonic Excess is the one I dig the most.
Build a Mountain, all that stuff is great. My favorite song is I Feel the Burning Sun, which came out in Equilibrium, but yeah, Sonic Excess is unreal too. So it's hard to there's not really a bad one, I would say, but
no, it's true.
Yeah.
It's like formulaic, so they don't really deviate from it much.
yeah.
Talking about Meathead stuff, I was going to say that I was shocked that you just said the Swarm's last show was with Ringworm. That is insane to me.
Oh my God,
That's
dude. The Promise came out like as well as Those Who Fear Tomorrow. Dude, 1990? That was made, maybe? Nothing sounded like that. Like that's what makes shit like that. That's what made that so impactful. Or even like Neurosis, if you think of like Enemy of the Sun. It's again with like history, it's easy to look at it now as if it was all like one time, but really that was like what was heavy at the time was corny as fuck, was like Judgment Night shit. And I'm sorry because I know that had a redux and people think that's a good thing. I don't. But that sound, that weird like rap metal kind of shit, which led into new metal, that wasn't good sounds. But The Promise is just like deranged.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird. It sounds like they made it at fucking Radio Shack or something. Like it just sounds like tinny in this way that's like so perfect for what it is. And his vocals and obviously his lyrics are just like, this is twisted shit. And same with Integrity. I don't know. Yeah.
One more thing while we have you here. Plagues Upon Plagues, SECT, it's out now. Southern Lord Recordings. Check out Unwell. Check out...
That's with 2 V's. Unwell with 2 V's instead of a W.
Thanks. Yeah. It's getting ahead of the possibility of a million other Unwells popping up, which I think one has since then.
Of course. Yeah.
It's great. There's like 6 vastly different tracks that you'll find something you love in there. Hell, there's a Gordon Lightfoot cover, as we mentioned. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. But Chris, thank you so much for talking to us. And it's been such a joy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. That was cool. Honestly, like it means a lot that people think that much about something that we made, you know, I mean, that to think that 2 was 2 decades ago now is kind of fucked up, but it happens that way. So thank you for having me. That was really cool.
Of course. You can follow us for any updates on Riff Worship Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. We'll be back next week with something else. But for myself, for Swindle, for Chris, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Awesome. Bye. Thank you so much. Take it easy.